So how does Bella see Edward in New Moon if he can't access her mind? The Twilight Saga, New Moon sees Bella, Kristen Stewart, and Edward, Robert Pattinson, breaking up at the beginning, and Bella spends a large part of the movie hearing and seeing Edward. However, this raises some questions as it's known that Edward can't access Bella's mind. Stephenie Meyer's Twilight universe brings together vampires, werewolves, and humans, with key changes to the first two. The vampires and werewolves in the world of Twilight are unlike their traditional depictions, and one of the biggest and most controversial changes to vampires is that each of them has unique powers. The powers of the vampires in Twilight go from very useful and interesting to completely useless and irrelevant. The set of powers of each vampire is unique, and Edward's is all about reading minds. It's revealed in Twilight that Edward was drawn to Bella due to the smell of her blood, and because hers was the only mind he could not read, making her a mystery to him. However, in New Moon, Bella hears and sees Edward in specific scenarios, which has raised questions as Edward has no access to Bella's mind. Bella doesn't see Edward in the Twilight Saga, New Moon. It's a coping mechanism. Twilight is all about how Bella and Edward met, how Bella learned he and his family are vampires, her first encounter with a non-vegetarian vampire, and her decision to stay with Edward despite all the dangers. New Moon reunites viewers with Bella and Edward as they prepare to celebrate her 18th birthday at the Cullens' house. After an incident with a paper cut in a bloodthirsty Jasper, Jackson Rathbone, Edward realizes Bella is in constant danger with him, so he breaks up with her and he and his family leave Forks. Bella is left heartbroken and alone and sinks into a deep depression, isolating herself in the process. One night, Bella accepts a ride from an unknown biker, and the danger of this experience makes her hear Edward's voice and even see him. This leads Bella to put herself in dangerous situations to keep seeing Edward. But this isn't because Edward is inside her mind or reaching out to her somehow. Instead, it's all due to Bella's depression. As a coping mechanism, Bella's mind begins to hear Edward's voice warning her about the danger she's about to get involved in. Bella's depression and stress over her breakup with Edward and his departure from Forks lead her not just to isolate herself, but also to have night terrors. On top of that, as a coping mechanism, Bella's mind begins to hear Edward's voice warning her about the danger she's about to get involved in, with the movie adding visual hallucinations of Edward talking to her. In the book, Bella eventually tells Edward about these hallucinations and he shows concern, but by then, they're back together again. Edward finally accesses Bella's mind in Twilight. Breaking Dawn, Part 2, with her consent. Another big reveal about vampires in Meyer's Twilight universe is that humans have dormant vampire powers. Obviously, these only manifest when a human is turned into a vampire, so Bella doesn't know she has been blocking Edward until she's turned into a vampire at the end of Breaking Dawn, Part 1. Bella's power is a mental shield, thanks to which she can block all kinds of psychic powers that invade the mind, such as Edward's mind-reading powers and Jane's pain-inducing illusions. Once turned into a vampire, Bella has a lot more control over her mental shield, even being able to extend it to protect those around her. At the end of Breaking Dawn, Part 2, Bella decides to remove her shield so Edward can finally access her mind and read it. Edward only goes into Bella's mind with her consent, which should give some relief to fans after some truly questionable moments throughout their relationship in the Twilight Saga.